Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. It is me once again, screaming into the void of the internet. I decided to record this at home because I was just like, whatever, you know. But I wanted to talk about something, I think for a few days, but I just never got around to making it because my freaking foot got rolled, essentially. And so, I've kind of been trying to let that heal, like when I've been home and stuff like that. So, I've been putting off this video, even though it's not like it's some kind of crazy video or it's going to go viral or something like that. But I kind of want to talk about, how shall I word this? I guess doing what is expected versus doing what you feel is the best thing for you. Divergence, if you will. I'll try and come up with a way to, word it together in title, whatever, you know. You know, so much of life for the everyday person, is do this, do that, and whatnot, and what is usually driving them, fame, fortune, maybe family, sex if you're a man, usually, status. But so what I've understood is as I become, or became, and continue to become, essentially, more and more independent and more critical of things, I realize that, like this whole thing is just one big Ponzi scheme. All of life is just one big Ponzi scheme. You know, you're born to parents that you have no say, you know, so you might already get like a horrible start or a wonderful start, depending on if they were freaking, reasonable people, right? And I mean this in both capacities. So there are some people who are like financially stable that are just awful human beings. Like just look at freaking Will Smith and Jada Smith, like that. Oh my gosh, dude. Look at what they did to those kids. Like, for all intents and purposes, those kids should be set, and just look at what happened to them. So, even if you are born into a position where, your parents, for all intents and purposes, should be able to give you a good life, it's not always the case. So, you're born to people that may or may not give you a good start. You go to school and you deal with either, maybe acceptance or bullying based on usually, again, like your background, if you're like poor or if you just look a little bit funny, because again, you can't determine how you look, and you get harassed and it kind of shapes your worldview, or maybe you get praised because you look relatively alright, right? And so you're trying to fit into the mold. You go to college if, you want to further the education, or you go into the workforce, all so that you can try and appease what this world wants out of you, you know? And what I realized is that as you start to just openly rebuke and just denounce certain things, because I was aware of this even at an early age, because I just knew that there were things about my community, air quotes, the communita, the Blizzaks, the Nibbas, right, that I was never okay with. I didn't automatically feel like I was being, you know, persecuted and that people were being racist to me, because when I looked around at the people saying that, I was like, if someone was just yelling at me and being an obnoxious little cunt, yeah, I wouldn't want anything to do with them either. That's not auto racism. That's just you being sick of freaking ratchets. Because I didn't want anything to do with them. I was just a really quiet kid. And they tried to fill me with that bullcrap that, oh, there's so much racism. To say that someone isn't going to view you in a bad way just because of like how you look or where you come from, like, yeah, that's ridiculous to say that that doesn't happen at all. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen at all. But the truth of the matter is, and this is kind of what I mean about like, going against the mold, they're not entitled to. Because the same way that you might hate someone because they're a fagot, or hate someone because they believe in a god that you don't believe in, or, they may be a Republican or a demon rat or a freaking conservative or whatever you want to call them, we're not obligated to like each other just because. Like, we're not obligated to. And we will never be obligated to. That's kind of one of the things that people don't want to accept. You're not ever going to make people just like each other. So I've never really understood the whole virtue signaling. And then when it becomes like this idea of when you admit that you have no intentions of participating in the competition of this cancerous Ponzi scheme known as society, people try and get up your arse about it, right? Let's say that you, like me, for example, just say, yeah, F dating. All your genes are gonna die. Really now, because most of the genes throughout human history died. And if you really want to play that game, let's go ahead and take a nice little look at Ukraine. Let's take a nice little look at Ukraine and Russia right now. All of those guys that decided to pop out kids and families, their sons got kidnapped. And they blew each other apart. Dying in drone strikes or dying in freaking knife battles that, you can unfortunately watch. Yeah. You can unfortunately watch as, like, two young freaking men are stabbing one another, struggling to kill each other. You can watch that, by the way. And so they sit around here and talk about how you're a genetic dead end. And you look at those people right there, and I'm like, well, what the hell are they even fighting for? What are they fighting for? Does anyone even know at this point? Of course not. They don't know. The same way that people in freaking Palestine and Israel are blowing each other to kingdom come. This whole genetic dead end bull crap that people want to, like, argue with you and stuff like that is just hilarious. At the end of the day, your life's your own. I despise groupthink with a passion. If you didn't know, your brain literally will alter itself to just automatically select whatever the group likes so that you fit in more. And in my opinion, groupthink is the death of individuality. Slowly but surely. You might not think it's getting to you, but the more that you hang around that group, the more that it is. I mean, think about it right now. If you were to say that I'm a conservative, right? What does that usually automatically mean? In a lot of aspects. Well, you're probably against abortion, hopefully closed borders, less gun control, so-called more freedom, like less censorship. But at the same time, then the conservatives will try and say, oh, well, I'm against porn, so. My point is, it's automatically painting this image that may or may not define you, but the fact that it automatically comes to mind to begin with should show you what's the problem with it, okay? Someone is automatically thinking that they know things about you and they know what you stand on because you're in a group. And I don't care for that. And I think that the more that people push back on stuff like that, they dislike it because it's almost like it invalidates certain decisions that they take, Well, why don't you want tons of possessions? Why would you want to, like, just be a minimalist? That's so stupid for the economy. Well, why would I want all these possessions when, to be honest, the economy doesn't really give a rat's arse about me. It's not some kind of sentient entity where it has the goodwill of everyone. It's just something operated by very few people, manipulating markets and deciding what is going to go up and down. And you're just the cocksucker that gets caught in the crossfire. For better or worse, right? For better is awesome. For worse, it's worse, and it's worse really bad. Just ask people about their inflation. It's not a pretty time. There's no denying that I live the way that I do because I'm going to counter this crap to the best of my abilities. I don't want tons of material possessions. What's the point? What's the point of having all of this stuff that I need to carry around if I ever decide to move? The best thing that I personally feel is that if I wanted to move right now, I have this stuff ready within less than 20 minutes. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I think when people see that, they realize that they can't make you buckle. And so they try to invalidate you because I think it's almost a projection. It's like you're invalidating them. And I don't know where they get this idea. Like, I've never said in any of my videos that, you have to, like, live like me, or like you have to, like, not approach chicks or something like that. I've said, I will admit that I've said, be careful. But I've never said that, oh, you shouldn't have kids and stuff like that. And I said that, yeah, I think that most people shouldn't have kids unless they're, like, financially, mentally stable. But that's not going to, I said that I think, like, it's not like I control them. it's not up to me to like validate or invalidate your freaking life choices. And the sheer fact that some people get so butthurt about it that they feel like you're automatically doing it just by like living differently than they are is pretty funny. Because listen, no, I am not in this camp of like, family life is best life and stuff like that. I'm not. And it's rather fascinating because somebody in the comments recently, in a previous video about Truth of the Black Pill, he mentioned that he's acknowledged that his like wife doesn't even love him, but he has kids and stuff like that. And I was like, well, why did you stay with her? And he said in his mind, something is infinitely better than nothing. And I can agree with that. And he's essentially made his bed and he's lying in it, right? And I agree. There's no denying that me coming from poverty, right? Something for me, like just this room, being away from freaking quiches and crap like that. And funny thing about quiches that I'm going to talk about in a minute. If you don't know what quiches are, that's just another way of calling them sisters, the Blizzax chicks, okay? Something is better than nothing, yes. My peace that I have fought for so strongly it's infinitely worth more than, most things that people realize, in my opinion. It's infinitely worth more. So I understand what he means by that. I do. And if you can make peace with stuff like that and you make a decision that may or may not be popular, then, we all got to just live like that, right? We got to make peace with our decisions and live. And for me, this is the best choice for my life at this very moment. Will it change? It is possible. But I sincerely doubt it. It's not like I'm new to this. I've been saying this since I was young. Like, what I was exposed to kind of like put me off. And I'm willing to admit that. Now, some people might call that, oh, that's unresolved trauma. Is it really unresolved trauma, or is it making a decision based on your experience? Why is everything so-called traumatic? Like, there are just things that you learn, Is it traumatic if you see somebody die who died because of drunk driving and you just like, I'm not really going to mess with alcohol? Well, you're supposed to drink alcohol because we said so. Why? You're not some kind of orchestrator of my fate. It doesn't make sense to me that when you choose not to go with a societal flow, people will try and associate that as like unresolved trauma. Like, is there some sort of true way that everyone's supposed to be going? Because if that's the case, then what's the point of competition? Like let's just play a game for a minute. If everyone's supposed to be dancing and singing to a certain tune, shouldn't we all be trying to help each other to that tune? Why are we always trying to compete with one another? Because let's get something dang straight, right? If you really feel like that, let's say that you believe you're one of these like so-called cuck conservatives. Oh, we're all supposed to marry and stuff like that. What are you doing to make sure that certain guys marry? Because you're already admitting that a lot of these guys suck and stuff like that. Same with the gals, right? A lot of them are already saying that some whole bunch of these guys suck. What are they doing to like make sure that those guys marry? Nothing, right? They don't protect them. They don't encourage anything. If we're also to have a whole bunch of material possessions, are the material possessions affordable? What do we get when we have them? Like, do we have like any kind of guarantee that they're always ours? Yeah, it's not like we get reimbursed if something gets stolen or broken or lost, right? No. So, if we're all supposed to dance and sing to a certain tune, why are we competing all the time? People try and make sure that they have a whole bunch of stuff and you have a little bit of stuff because they're always trying to say, hey, look, guys, look, status. And I just checked out because, listen, I realized that it's all just for naught. It's stupid. I have no intention of trying to destroy someone else on my so-called way to the top. And even as I, kind of get down the road, shall we say, and I get into mechanical engineering and I get into the companion dolls, let's say that I start making decent money. Even then, I'm not going to live like a freaking king in terms of like just tons of stuff, tons of cars, tons of women. I don't care. I have no intention of like putting a massive target on my head saying, guys, look at how much status I have. I don't care. I'm not telling you that you have to live in a mud hut or something like that. I just don't have the desire to compete with this. I know what this is and I don't like it. It is what it is. I've chosen for myself what I want to do. And I don't owe anyone any kind of freaking explanation, and nor do you folks. Should you decide that you're going to stand on your principles, whatever they may be, whatever it is, whether it is starting a family, whether it is, trying to buy a house in today's day and age, or maybe not buying a house and just like kind of living frugally and just checking out and eating. You don't owe these cocksuckers an explanation, because at the end of the day, it's not like they're your allies. They're trying to compete with you. They're mad that you don't want to compete. They don't like that you are not willing to do what they did, what they may have sacrificed years of. Because I think in their minds, they feel as though it invalidates them. Somehow. You existing contrary to how they did it makes them mad. Just look at the boomers. Back in my day. Right? They're getting really upset because, listen, Social Security is about to go bye-bye. Oh yeah, it's drying up. And they're getting older and older, and soon they're going to be in the nursing homes. They're going to be in the whole bedridden phase. And listen, my first job was a caretaker. I know what that does. There's a lot of people that start to really regret what they did. And trust me, a whole bunch of people are not too fond of them. So when they get into that phase, they're really going to need that Social Security, because I don't really imagine that there's going to be really that many people that are going to want to help them. And this isn't like boomer hate. This is just me being honest. The fact of the matter is that more and more people now are focusing on what matters, in my opinion. And this is what always should matter. You. What do you really want? Because this world is doing everything in its power to, like, make you miserable. So what do you really feel is going to make you happy? Are you going to just try and follow something because that's what everyone tries to convince you that you need? The wife, happy life, happy wife, happy life, tons of kids and stuff like that, even though we have nothing to guarantee that those kids are actually going to be yours. No paternity testing for you. They can get stolen from you in divorce court, like used as freaking hostages with child extortion, which is called support, Do they have anything to protect you? When they say that, all right, well, material possessions, well, why is it so hard to earn a livable wage? Why are material goods going up with inflation? Why is it always you that must adapt to the system that is constantly trying to screw you over? If the system is something that is beneficial, why is it constantly screwing you over, and you're just supposed to kind of compensate for the system? Why is the system never trying to change? When we have faulty programming in codes, right, in computers, stuff like that, we change the code and correct it. But with society, no matter how bad the error gets, no matter how faulty the program gets, we're supposed to change for the program. It could be glitching and loading like old computers back when we had, like, say 3 windows open, and it's taken forever to do anything. But apparently it's still us that needs to change. And I just say, no. I'm done with that. I have no interest in competing. I know how I'm going to live. And whether or not anyone supports it or otherwise, it's irrelevant. They're not living my life. This is my experience, So I found it very, very interesting that people get so offended by that. It's really concerning. They try and make it seem like it's some kind of unresolved trauma that you have because everyone's supposed to be living this way. Because again, listen, if you really feel that way, if you think that you've got all the solutions, why don't you just go fix the world? Because scholars throughout history have been looking for all of the solutions. So if you got them, by all means, go fix the world. Go ahead and present it to the governments of the world. And this is what's going to happen. They're going to laugh in your face. You know why? Because even if you did have all the solutions, which you don't, if it's not going to make them money, they could give a hot crap. That's the truth. They don't care. And yet here you are, on the internet usually, talking your eyes out about how everyone needs to live like you, essentially. Let's just be real. Live like you. You're just one person, bro. Never understood that. But I know that this was kind of like a little bit, shall we say, all over the place. But I'm just so sick and tired of people trying to dictate how you're supposed to be living your life, At the end of the day, these people aren't going to help you. If they feel like there is some sort of destination that everyone is supposed to be going towards, they don't help everyone get there. So why the heck do they think that they have some kind of right to tell you how you're supposed to live? It's so retarded to me. But I think that's going to go ahead and include it, boys. You know something? I really like this. I really like just being able to just talk and get my thoughts out and know that, even if it's not a lot of people, that there are guys that listen. And there are guys that make me think because, like I said, I think multiple perspectives. This is the one good thing about groupthink, but it's like you have to be in a group think where it's like everyone's still more like an individual. They're kind of like just hang around the group for a bit and then they just dip, because it's multiple perspectives, multiple perspectives. But usually these days with groups, it's just like you just hear the same things, just talking points. They're just parroting the same crap, and they're so scared to say something that might not be accepted. One of the best things that I love is I can basically talk about anything. I was talking to a subscriber, and we were having a really interesting chat that I'm not even going to share here because number one, it's private and stuff like that. Number two, it's definitely going to get me banned if I even mention any of it. But that's how I think that groups should be. You should be able to just talk about virtually anything. And even if it sounds crazy, unless it's like, like pedo bear bull crap, right? Uh, People should be willing to like hear you out instead of just getting all in their feelings and going, "Oh, we can't talk about that." I think that's what groups are supposed to be, but that's not what they are. It's always about conformity and stuff like that. Even though, again, what do people get when they conform? What do they really get? It's not like you're gonna help them. It's not like you're gonna make sure that they reach the destination. They don't get anything. So, whatever. I digress. I hope you guys enjoyed, as always. Hope you guys are hanging in there. As always, there is life beyond your pain, folks. Let's hunker through the bad days so that we can enjoy the good ones. Thank you again. God bless. I will see you guys next time.